Do, pow, pow, pow. All right, we're recording. Yeah, this is Freedom Phil live from the wasteland out here in the survival pod. And what's the topic today? Women complain that they can't find a good man. But when you hear about the case I'm going to talk about, well, no surprise in that case because, like ladies, frankly, good men are starting to look the other way. And there's a good reason for that. Because maybe we don't want to risk everything we have worked for in our freedom for what could just be, like a black widow. It's kind of, down the road, if dudes are normalizing the whole robot thing where the robots are actually cooking and cleaning and doing everything, it won't surprise me. Because when the normal option has now become unrealistically risky, why wouldn't you go to something that just works? Yeah, it's going to be a wild conversation. This is Freedom Phil. Like, subscribe. Let's get into it. And always turn up the video speed. And why I always say that? Because you should be watching videos faster. If I upload this, you should watch it at 1.75. Let's get into it. So I saw this article from Better Bachelor. It came out of the UK where basically this woman who was drunk in a cab, she's riding back and she's being belligerent. I don't know who she's fighting with, but the cabbie was just like, hey, you got to get out. This mother of five is on the side of the road because she's being crazy. And you bet that cabbie probably had a video recording of her acting like a fool. Well, she's walking along and she's, trying to thumb a ride or something like that. And these three Pakistanis pick her up. And that sounds bad on the surface, but they didn't do anything to her. And one of them was smart enough to record the situation just in case. And she got mad when they dropped her off and she tried to hug them and they didn't want to touch her. I don't know, maybe they were super religious and they just were like, no, we don't touch, not our women. They were just doing a decent deed. And I know in the UK, usually the message goes, migrant, Pakistani, this could be an issue. But she was so pissed off that she falsely accused these guys, this particular guy. And luckily, he was smart enough to record the entire situation. Think about the world we live in now to where being a good Samaritan is basically a risk. And I've understood this for years. Back when I first got my CDL, upgrading from the Class B to a Class A in the trucking school, they said, well, what do you do if you hear some woman screaming for help? And all the people were kind of looking concerned. I just said, I don't fall for that trick, man. I call the cops. And everybody looked back, especially the women looked back with this glare. Like, you wouldn't just help her? I'm like, I'm not getting out of that truck. And the instructors explained it because he understood. I'm like, that's an old coyote trick. Here's what they'll do. They'll have some woman screaming out there, and then some other guys, some thugs will come up, guns or whatever, and they'll steal your truck. You come out there screaming, help, help, I'll call the police, baby. And that's my attitude on a lot of these situations. If there's some woman on the side of the road, I am not risking my freedom to help you when basically I don't know what your intentions are. I can't understand what's in the hearts of people. And not to mention, shit, bitch, you got a cell phone. Why haven't you already called the cops or called the, AAA or something? I don't know what your deal is, but I know I'm not falling for this crap. And now a lot of people are like, well, sometimes, most of the time it's just going to be legitimate. Like someone's just over on the side of the road. Most people aren't going to falsely accuse you of something. But I don't need to take that risk. And every time we see one of these cases, it's a reminder of the reasons why women are like, we can't find a good man. Well, number one, ladies, let's just cut the bullshit. You don't want a good man. You want the perfect man. And the perfect man, number one, doesn't have to settle for any of you. The perfect man gets all the women coming to him. But you want the perfect man. But then you kind of settle for the good man. But you're done beating the good man with a stick over and over again. And the good man looks around and goes, I don't need this abuse. I don't need to put up with this shit. And so people say, like, for instance, why would you prefer to be in the middle of nowhere? And this isn't just like a female thing. This is a society thing. Like I'm a kind of an ogre of a man, big Shrek-like individual. And you guess what? In the wasteland, it doesn't matter. In fact, sometimes it's to my advantage. Some people might drive by, think, hey, is that an easy mark there? And then they see me and they're like, you know what? We're not going to risk that. Like when I start to look at society and people is like, I go into town and I get what I need. Life is pretty much, you go in there as a transaction. That's it. Like, I don't, like, there is no community a lot of times, especially, like, and this is the thing. I remember it was like, if there's this meme called Skeletor Talks. And he's like, remember, when you've dealt with so much bad shit, when good shit comes along, you're instantly skeptical of it. You're goddamn right. After years of bad shit over and over again, you are skeptical of anybody that's kind. Like, you're like, okay, why are you here? What's your motive? You don't exactly say that. You try to not be an asshole about it, but you begin to look at the world and you're like, I don't want to waste my time trusting a person when, like, what, and you've gotten used to the way you are. You're just fine. Like, what was that movie? I Am Legend or some shit. I can't remember what it was. It was, the movie where the guy's living out in the middle of nowhere. I don't watch a lot of movies because a lot of the writing is shit these days. And he's living in the middle of nowhere. And he's got these eggs and everything's fine. He's saving the eggs. And then this woman comes along, and within how long? He's a dead man by the end of the movie. Like, he was doing just fine by himself. So what has that got to do with relationships between men and women and men in society? Well, frankly, once men have gotten to where I'm at, not necessarily van life, but let's just say they buy their own little house, like a 2-bedroom or whatever, some cheap place they own, or they do van life, or they got some job, or they got some cheap apartment. And they're looking at the world going, I'm comfortable. I'm doing just fine. I don't need to deal with this nonsense. Like, when they get to that more evolved state of like, hey, if I get laid, cool. If I don't care. Their whole life isn't revolving around a warm, wet hole. And not to mention, I just want to throw this out there. As men are becoming more evolved, they're basically looking around and they're like, it turns out there's a lot of other pleasures in life other than just this one. So they start, like, I did this when I was younger. I just thought about it from this perspective. You want me to sacrifice my freedom, my time, my effort just for that one thing? Pussy. Because that's really how it is. I was living out in the woods in my early 20s, had a yurt, wood stove, had a Siberian Husky, no problems, no issues. And I remember some women are like, Peter Pan syndrome, whatever shit they heard on daytime TV telling them, how to shame a guy. And it's like, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm just doing my life, living my way. And you know what shocked me? I'm like, if these women really love me, they can move out. We can be a thing. But I'm like, I'm going to be me. And the women's attitudes was like, well, why don't you just get an apartment? The fuck should I? Why do I need that? From a young age, I recognize that a lot of women are basically just there to get what they can out of a man. Pay her bills, take her on trips, pay her cell phone bill, car payment, whatever. How many married guys do you see that it comes out after the marriage and they're like, we were in a dead relationship for, 6 of 8 years. And he just kept on trudging away because he loved his kids and he didn't want to lose his house and he loved his kids. You see these situations out there where effectively guys have now gotten to the point where they've watched, like, okay, Married with Children, Al Bundy is clearly, just this poor working slob. But at least when he went to a house that he owned and a wife that surprisingly wanted to fuck him. We don't even get the Al Bundy deal. So when you start looking at the world and you see some guy get falsely accused, it's like snakes. And ladies, I don't want to use the comparison to snakes, but the venomous aspect is a good analogy. If you live up in the Northwest, on the West Coast, we don't have no venomous snakes up there, so you're not really afraid of them. You got like some garter snakes and some, what do you call them? Some type of boa. They're just a slightly larger garter snake. But once you get into the desert regions, you might see a king snake and not know it's a king snake. Might think it's some sort of poisonous snake because there are poisonous snakes around. And you're just like, I'm not taking this risk on what might be a good snake or a bad snake. I'm just going to avoid snakes. I'm just going to be like, hey man, no thanks. And that's the same way I am with society. And bringing it back to, why would guys eventually, if the robots were better, why would guys choose a robot where they come home, robot cooked the food, robot services as member, robot can watch the game with them? You know, people say we won't replace male-female relationships with robots. But have we not already done it? And I know this is a wild thought for a lot of people, but how many of you watch your TV shows versus having human interaction? Maybe you listen to the radio. Maybe you go fishing. Maybe you play video games. Shit, you watch the internet. How much of our human interactions where they were so good, like if you're in a good relationship, and there's a statistic that only about 15% of marriages, they're actually happy marriages. So only 15% of married men are actually happy. We're talking like, what is that? 85% of the time, it's either divorce or you're just cheaper to keep her. Now, men are logical for the most part. Pussy will cause dudes to stop thinking. Let's be real about that. You'll see like a lot of guys when they're younger, they're like, oh, look at that. But men are logical enough to look at a bad deal and go, okay, so if I was working a job and there was a 85% chance that I was going to get fucked over by my business partner, would you ever start that business? And then you look over at the future. Like, I was listening to this Bill Burr comedy skit, and he was talking about how back in the day when some guy had a blow-up doll, it was totally sleazy. You had to go to some far-off porn store somewhere where nobody knew you, and then you bought this thing, and if you got caught with it, you know, it's like, that guy just went somewhere else. You know, like, Mom, I'm going to Alaska. I thought that was hilarious. But now they're making these bots, and they're looking real. And let's be honest, some of them, they actually physically look better than a lot of women. Now, there is the uncanny doll stare. Let's be real about that. You know, the uncanny valley. We're like, you're going to have to get past that. But eventually, as technology gets better, just like cars, just like computers, just like everything, we're going to have robot maids that also have a functioning fucking, you know, let's be honest. That fucking robot pussy is going to be able to do things that no woman could ever do. Just like women have, you know, said originally, you know, like trying to disparage guys. Like, well, my vibrator can do this. Well, guess what, honeys? That robot puss is going to be able to do things your pussy could never do. And she's going to cook. She's going to clean. She's not going to nag you when you get home. You just need to plug her in to recharge her. This technology is only, I see a future where there is going to be a percentage of guys that are just noping out, you know? You know, and like, see, here's why. No. We got some dummies. You want to talk now? Subscribers only. Otherwise, shut up. Some of you are cool, but that's why you can't have nice things, people. That's why you can't have nice things. Because of dumb motherfuckers. We'll see if they still got some shit to say after they have to subscribe. Talking shit, motherfucker. But yeah, you get a situation where men become satisfied out on their own. Like, dude, I've said retirement by 30. It is not hard. It is not complicated. You go out and get a trades job, drive truck, live as cheap as possible, live in whatever situation you can, and then you invest your money when you're young. And then your money's making you compound interest. It's making you're living off dividends. You're pulling the Norwegian money glitch. Or you're living off your investments, you know, like the rich people do. Any man can achieve that. By the way, women can achieve it too. But you know why women most of the time will not achieve it? Because they're lazy and dumb. It's not that they're stupid. It's just that they're like, oh, somebody else will do it for me. Somebody else will pay my bills. And so they don't even try. They just expect someone to show up and save their ass. Well, every time, just like in the beginning of this conversation, that we see a woman falsely accusing a guy, like a good Samaritan, a guy that does something. You guys remember that case not so long ago in America? This last one came out of the UK. Look up the Better Bachelor video for that. That case where that guy pulled over to help this woman with her car and she falsely accused him, probably because she was up to some fuck shit and she wanted an excuse for why things are happening. You'll see this with cases where women in colleges would lie about a guy because they're going out with some guy who's going to be a doctor and they threw their ass around, and it's called regret rape. You see these situations, and look, I'm a guy who's kind of an ogre of a man. Big Shrek-like individual, nasty ogre. I'm not a mean man by any stretch of the imagination, but the reality is that I know if I go before a judge and I'm supposed to be judged like justice is blind, well, everybody, I don't see no blindfolds. And I see a lot of people just people come up with a characterization of you based on, they look at you and in seconds they've got I remember on just one job I worked at. I heard these women talking behind my back. I was coming in to pick up some paperwork for the trucking company, and they said, he looks like someone who could get away with it, but he's smart. He looks like someone that did it, but smart enough to get away with it. These are my fucking coworkers saying I'm some sort of something like that. Am I supposed to trust the society that produces these motherfuckers? And every time a sensible guy looks around and says, I'm not risking my life for that shit. Well, ladies, you got one less man that's willing to put up with your shit and date you. One less man. And then the top tier men that you're all chasing after, they don't have to marry you, and they never will have to marry you because you are pussy on demand. You are pussy like 30 minutes or less. You come to them. You come to Chad Thundercock. Chad Thundercock probably has you on recording. There's even cases where guys are smart enough to say, hey, you put it on recording and you want to sleep with me. You put it on this and that, and basically it sets up the situation to where you try to say some shit later. Chad or Tyronius Maximus, they can be like, nope, this is what she's saying. She's trying to get some payday out of trying to fuck me. So basically, you have done screwed over the situation to where a lot of good men are cautious. There's always going to be a segment of the population that tries to make it work, and hopefully it works out, but 85% of the time it doesn't. Because even if you're still married, if you're fucking miserable, that is not a healthy marriage. And then there's a segment of men that are just like, nope, I'm just going to go to the wasteland. I'm just going to go to the woods. I'm just going to go do whatever the fuck I want. Now, what happens down the road? And by the way, don't be surprised if women try to ban robots. They'll talk about the conservatives will be right there with them. Because the conservatives are like, we need to have people having more children to keep Social Security going. Because the only reason you exist as a man is to keep society going. That's generally the attitude they have towards you. But don't be surprised if down the road, when the bots can do the house cleaning, the cooking, the laundry, that you'll see more and more guys worldwide. If not in America, you will see in other countries where guys are like, yeah, I just don't have to deal with the nonsense. And then there'll be these articles about women are left behind. We can't find a good man. We are already saying you can't find a good man. Isn't it amazing how after less than 100 years of feminism, women can't find a good man, and men are now cautious enough to say, I'm not risking my shit over this. I'm just saying. All right, I'll read some comments. All right, let's see. Is this brittle? Man, okay, whatever. Hey, you can go in timeout. You can go in timeout, man. You want to be an asshole? Let's just see. Okay, enjoy timeout. No, we don't need you. And you could definitely go in timeout because you're just rude. I'll enjoy timeout there. Yeah, then we got a few comments. People are like, what you got? I got fucking more than you. I got a paid off house and 2 other pieces of property outright owned. And money in the bank. People try to talk shit to me, but at the end of the day, I'm doing better than most of you. And you guys have better statistical stuff where you can peacock and show off your plumage. But at the end of the day, most of that shit you guys have is uncredited. And I ain't trying to be a dick. I'm just telling it like it is. So, I mean, yeah. So there you go. There you go. See, this is what happens when someone rolls in here. I'll let you guys get a few fucking shots off. But I will happily block your ass. Happily throw you in timeout. I throw some of you in timeout just so you can fume. I throw you in the furnace so you can build steam. So just understand that. Anyhow, this is Freedom Phil. Like, subscribe. I'm just saying, men and women, ladies, men didn't start this war. This was you. Men are just adjusting, adapting, and now the good men that you used to go after, they don't exist. And the regular men that you would have probably settled for, and they would have settled for you, more and more, they're fading away. This is like the disappearance of manna. The manna's fading away. And now you got to live in a world where the magic that once existed between men and women is now the most precious fucking commodity to a lot of people. What did you trade it for, honey? Peace.